Hi everybody, welcome to Intentionally Waiting, episode 8, series 1. So I am excited to show up today, not because I have had like a worldwide week or anything, but just because I'm excited to see you. I'm excited to show up for me and for you today. And I have actually, for the first time, been thinking, what would I like to share with you today? And the reason why I thought about it is because, to be fair, I just thought I didn't have a very impressive week. I didn't think I did much last week. I thought it was pretty much a mundane week, and I wasn't well. You know, that kind of a cold that comes on you all of a sudden, and then you can't do anything for 3-4 days. That was me. And it's not so great when you've got to nurse yourself, you know, when there isn't that person there to make you a hot warm cocoa, or, you know, rub your feet or stroke your hair or even read your story. Or is that just me? Anyway, today I want to dig a little bit deeper into loving yourself, because I think it's a big topic, and you know, and it's kind of like the stage that I need to really be, I guess, like it needs to be part of my life before I move on to the next stage of actually going out there and prepare myself for the meetups. Because I think if I don't love myself, then someone else is not going to love me the way I want to be loved. So I've got to love myself the way I want to be loved, so that somebody else can come in and love me in that way. But it's a challenge. And I know, you know, when we've been on this journey, I started off by talking about it's identifying that you don't love yourself, which is an identification that I came to terms with. And I identified on so many levels that I didn't love myself. And then it's the implementation of the actions that you put in place to kind of like help you get to the position where you start to love yourself, which is what I've been doing over the past few weeks. And in doing that, you kind of like hit stumbling blocks, because you get to a position where you start to actually rebel. Like, you know, you think you only rebel your parents. No. You can rebel yourself. And if you can rebel yourself, you can rebel your partner as well. So, and that's not great, because it's not really about rebelling. It's about communicating. So when I got to this point, and I'll tell you what I mean by rebelling. It's like, a lot of the things that I put in place where I started to show that I love myself, the things that I did for myself, the things that I was preparing so that, you know, the following day when I woke up, I didn't have to do things because they'd been prepared the night before, just because it was about me loving myself, the things about me not going to bed too late so that I can be fresh in the morning, the things about me thinking about, you know, do I cook for do I cook for 2 days or 1 day, just so that on the following day, there's not that much stress or strain on me. And that was all part of me showing up for myself and showing that I love myself. But then there was one day. There was one day when I woke up and I said, you know what, Clara, not today. Not today. And it's okay, because you go, not today. And that's okay for a day. But then when you go day 2, day 3, day 4, you're like, not today, not today, not today. What happens is that you kind of like start to slip back into your old self, into your old habits, and you wake up the next day and you're like, nothing's been done for you, nothing's been prepared for you. And then you actually start to blame yourself, which causes the issues and gets you right back to square one where you didn't love yourself. So I'm going to talk to you about how I have sorted that issue out so that I can move forward. And it's a crazy thing, really, because like when you look at things that you implement in your life, the implementation is great, but the other thing is, how do you maintain that implementation? How does it become a way of life for you? And, you know, there's so many studies that talk about when you do something 7 times, it automatically becomes a habit. There's all these different studies on miniature habits. So you change one thing just slightly, and then that becomes a habit, or just putting props in front of you so that it helps you to become a habit. So for example, if you know that you want to go running every day, then put some running shoes by your door so that when you wake up in the morning, your running shoes are there and it's just a case of you slipping into it. So all those are little kind of tactics to help you maintain whatever objective or goal that you've set. So in this particular instance, it's like, I want loving me to become part of my lifestyle. I just want it to be part of me, the kind of thing that I do. I want to just show up, not for anybody, not because I'm trying to impress anyone or anything like that, but just because I know that I am the only me that I am ever going to have. And I need to make sure that I look after me both internally and externally in the things that I do, in the happiness that I have, in the preparations that I make, and therefore be able to then have an impact on somebody else just because of me loving on me. So I realized that I needed some discipline. So discipline is key. If you have not got discipline in your life, then there may be an issue. But sometimes we can look at the word discipline and it sounds like a very harsh word. And to be fair, like I'm saying discipline, and I don't really like the word because I think it's really harsh. I think there needs to be something a little bit more fluid that you can use. But if anybody knows about alternative parenting, or if anybody's going through an adoption process, especially in the UK, there's a term that they use which is called therapeutical parenting. And it's a method of parenting where you're actually focusing not on the outcome, but on the root cause of the outcome. So I'm going to kind of tag on to that kind of process, and I'm going to actually call it therapeutical self-love. Therapeutical self-love. So this is about how do you self-love yourself through discipline, because there's the one side where you are doing things and it's great and it's wonderful and you're giving yourself nice little treats and things like that. But there's the times when, like when I got up in the morning and I said to myself, no, I'm not doing it anymore. There's a time when you really need to kind of like discipline and check yourself and determine whether that is going to actually have an impact on your overall self-love, or whether it's something that you just don't need to bother about. So my coining of the, shall I say this? I haven't stolen it because, you know, I've just used it and I've referred to it and I've just adapted it to the kind of things that I'm talking about. So that's what I'm doing. So this therapeutical self-love is really about identifying that it's not about beating yourself up. Because sometimes when we do something or we don't do something, we fail to do something, we can like be really harsh on ourselves. But if you're trying to love yourself, you can't be harsh on yourself in such a way that you start to blame yourself for stuff and you start to like get yourself irritated. You start to say harsh things to yourself. You've actually, because at the end of the day, we are emotional beings. We are emotional beings. And if you say a harsh thing to yourself, emotionally, you're impacting yourself. And whether you think it or you see it or you don't, that is actually making a mark on you. And that's not something that we want. So essentially, when we're talking about therapeutical self-love, it's really about, like I said, talking to yourself. So many of us do not talk to ourselves. And I think for me, it stemmed from that phrase that, you know, the talking to yourself at the beginning is the beginning of madness. You know, that phrase. I don't know who said that phrase, but, you know, I want to take that back, because I don't think that talking to yourself is the beginning of madness. I think talking to yourself is actually the beginning of sanity, if you know how to talk to yourself in a better way. So if you're consciously talking to yourself, then that is sanity. That is not insanity. Insanity is when you're talking to yourself and you don't know you're talking to yourself. But then, yeah, that makes sense. But when you are intentionally talking to yourself and you're intentionally encouraging yourself and you're intentionally disciplining yourself, that is actually sanity. In truth, that's the kind of thing that the therapists do. That's all they're doing. You know, you're talking to them and they're literally repeating back to you everything you've said to them. So you might as well talk to yourself. So, and when you talk to yourself, it's kind of about trying to understand from your perspective where these feelings are coming up from. So when you wake up in the morning, like this, I'm going to use the example that I have just so that it's simple, clear, and then you're able to kind of like apply it to your own life if you think it's relevant. Me getting up in the morning and just saying to myself, I'm not going to do this. And my specific thing that I wasn't going to do was, you know, I wasn't going to, what was it? I just didn't want to prepare anything for me to eat. I didn't want to tidy up my clothes. I didn't want to clean up the house. I didn't want to do any of those things that day. I just wanted to lie in bed. And I think there are times when that does happen, and sometimes there are times when it's okay. But what I didn't do was ask myself why. You know, what's the feeling behind it? You know, is it that I'm feeling under the weather? Or is it that, you know, there's an emotion that's come in place that I need to talk about and talk through? Because if I'm able to actually talk to myself and figure out the reason as to why I feel that way, it could just be that I didn't sleep well that night. Okay, you didn't sleep well that night. So what we're going to do, fine, that's not a problem. You don't have to do anything today, but you need to put a message in your notes that it's the first thing that is going to happen tomorrow. So essentially what you're doing is that you're still having that self-love. You're still keeping that identity. You're recognizing that there's something in you that's been impacted for that day. And it's not about forcing it and saying, well, you've got to get up and you've got to be a trooper and you've got to do this thing. But it's really about recognizing and talking to yourself in love. So this is something that I'm on this journey practicing this now, and it is working. I'm now getting back to doing the things that, you know, that kind of like bring me joy, back to showing myself that I love myself and starting to put the pieces in together. But at the same time, I'm wary of the fact that if there's something that I'm not doing that I know is an element of my love, I'm able to ask myself, why am I not doing that? So that's the one thing that I want to talk about, you know, that I want you to know. It's really about when you go down the route of loving yourself, there are going to be times when you will slip back. And the way in which you get around that is through discipline. And the discipline process that you're going to be using is called therapeutical self-love. And therapeutical self-love is about talking to yourself and understanding the reasons behind what you're doing, and then determining whether those reasons are valid or not valid. And if they are valid, accepting it and determining what then needs to be put in place so it doesn't become a habit, you know. And if they, you know, and if they're not valid, then also talking to yourself and going, well, you know what, actually, maybe that's not the true reason. Let's dig a little bit deeper. But it is really about getting to know yourself. And once you start to talk to yourself internally, you know, if you're in the house, you can talk to yourself out loud. There's nothing, I don't think there's an issue with that when there's no one really around. It kind of like sounds a little bit strange when, you know, you're sat next to somebody and you're talking to yourself and you're kind of like working things out in your head. So I would say get a quiet corner or do it when there is no one around so that there is no distractions and you can't be mistaken for somebody that's drank too much, and do it in that way. So, so that's that. I'll be so interested to see how you get on. I'll be so interested to like hear your comments on that. Like if you do go down this route of therapeutical self-love, how it's helping and working out for you. But I want to touch on a question that somebody's asked me, because I had a question and I got asked the question, am I dating or am I going for meetups? If you've been following me, you know at this stage, no, I am not on meetups because I want to really get to the position where self-love becomes a lifestyle. And I think my intention would be to start the whole process of meeting up from November. And I think November, December, and the rest of my life is going to be exciting. Not like before's not been exciting, but I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that I'm going to be doing so that I can actually start in November afresh. And one of those things is creating a social calendar. Oh. It's just the thought of it just makes me want to smile. But it's a specific social calendar because it's a social calendar which is about putting me out there in many different places. So that's one thing that I'm going to be doing. But I need to back up, because I'm a Christian, I back up anything that I do with prayer and going to God. So I'm going to be backing up the social calendar with prayer and also with fasting. So if you're a Christian and you want to join me in this 2 months, so it's going to be November, December calendar, seeping into a bit of January. So if you want to join me in this and creating your own social calendar and backing it up with prayer and backing it up with fasting, then join me. And we'll see what happens and see, you know, what God's got in store and how that plays out. If you're not a Christian, it's not a problem. You can still join me and create your social calendar in the manner and the way in which you want it. And then it's about backing it with faith that this is going to bring out some awesome results from you and some awesome opportunities and open so many doors for you as well. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And I think the next session, I'm going to be talking through how that's going to work. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So do tune in, subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed, do so. I'm super pumped to see that our numbers are creeping up. I started from about 100 people and I'm now, I think, about 400 people subscribed to this. So, and I'm seeing that the viewings of the videos are going up as well. So it's nice to see that I'm touching and I'm reaching somebody out there. And I hope that I continue to reach you in many different ways. And I hope that this session impacts you. Yeah. So I want to stop there. And you may be well surprised because you're thinking, oh my gosh, Clara, it's a bit shorter. I am trying to get them shorter because I recognize that everybody is really, really busy. And sometimes you don't have that much time to sit down. Like 20 minutes, 30 minutes can seem like a long time, but I still want to get the message across. So I hope that I'm not speeding through, and I hope that you don't feel like I'm giving you a disservice, but you can, you know, put your comments down. Let me know whether you think the shorter period is better or you'd rather something longer. But I guess there will be times when it's going to be longer, like if if I'm going through a study period, or if it's kind of like there's like some things that really need to go in deep with because I know that it's going to be a difficult topic, then I may take a longer time. But for this particular session, I don't think I need to waffle on anymore. So I am going to end with what I normally end with, which is, what am I going to call today's podcast? I think it's got to be how to discipline self-love. How to discipline self-love. And you never know, that might actually be the title of the podcast when it comes out. And if it's not, you know, as I always say, it is the essence of what I've been talking about. How to discipline self-love. Take care, guys, and I see you soon. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.